Hello students, I'm Imkong Tilnapungan from Department of Anthropology, University of Delhi. Today I'm going to speak on the module Paleoecology from the paper Human Origin and Evolution. Well, the learning objectives of the module are: number 1, to define the concept of paleoecology; number 2, to probe into theory, application and goals of paleoecology; number 3, to identify the impact of physical aspect of future development of paleoecology; to provide insight into ecology and study of modern ecosystem; and to be able to define the process of examining the cultural context of paleoecology. Paleoecology is the study of the distribution and abundance of organisms based on the remains from the fossil record. What constitutes a fossil has been much debated, but in general, fossils are the remains of organisms and their activity that have been preserved within the sedimentary or rock record. To define paleoecology, we should first define ecology, which is the study of the interactions of organisms with one another and with the physical environment. In such case, paleoecology can be defined as the study of the interactions of organisms with one another and with the physical environment in the geologic past. Predictive ecology. Predictive ecology is central but elusive call for experimental ecology on modern ecosystems, and this can hold even more so when confronting the vagaries of the fossil record. The fossil record has the advantage of recording the state of the ecosystem during repetitive time periods and thus under various combinations of environmental factors. However, processes must always be inferred from natural experiments where certain conditions have fortuitously been constant while a single or small number of factors vary. In this way, patterns derived from the fossil record can be used constructively for inferring potential processes acting over extended time periods. Now, the application and emphasis. The two definitions seem similar, however, application and emphasis of both are distinctly different because incomplete preservation of fossil record precludes the examination of many of the standard topics of ecology. The role of time. Ecologists deal with processes taking place during short time span and which are difficult to be observed in the geological record by paleoecologists who work within a framework of thousands or millions of years. Consequently, both evolutionary processes and long-term environmental change are lacking in ecology. Taxa are not preserved. The ecologist is able to examine directly the totality of the ecosystem under study to determine the life histories and interactions of all the organisms present and to relate this biological data to the instantaneous characteristics of the physical environment. In contrast, the paleoecologists can't do that because most of the organisms in the fossil record, even the most abundant taxa, are not preserved. Capabilities of paleoecology. In general, however, the capabilities of paleoecology as compared to those of ecology are more encouraging for two reasons. The time factor. The generality of ecologic models can only be tested in contemporaneous environments, but not through time because of the short span of scientific observation. So time factor is most readily available for paleoecologists. Components of biota. Ecologic studies depend on limited components of biota gathered only periodically and not on comprehensive data as we might think. So paleoecology and ecology are based on similar information either in quality and quantity. Goals of paleoecology. Among the goals of paleoecology are the reconstruction of ancient environments, the inference of modes of life for ancient organisms from fossils, the recognition of recurring groupings of ancient organisms that define relics of communities, that is, paleocommunities, the reconstruction of the interactions of organisms with their environments and with each other, and long-term pattern of stasis or change in ecosystems. Now let us see paleoecology theory. Paleoecology theory is founded on two main principles. Number one, able to achieve their ancient people potential or gain full participation in future society with technical complexity. Number two, it should work towards social transformation from past to future. Important questions addressed by paleoecologists include the establishment of methods for inferring, timing of the emergence of modern life systems, relative importance of attritional and catastrophic patterns of mortality among species, search for adaptive explanations for transitions, animal population extinctions. Now, in principle, paleoecology also allows the construction of trends over time spans that are unattainable by any other branch of science. Because of persistent methodological problems, however, analysis has achieved only limited credibility among mainstream demographers. The figure illustrates the consequences of conservation, biodiversity, loss, ecological traits, and threatened species, physical aspects of environments. Now, to understand the sensibility of past, it is important to observe picture sequence of life. The long and painful sufferings of species were met under severe circumstances. Paleoecology thought deals with theories developed and contribution made by different paleoecologists. Now, a more holistic approach stemming from paleoecology has provided a more adequate understanding of the overall picture. It is difficult to predict what theory will be like in the future. In summary, paleoecology is not a mere tool to understand the physical aspects of environments, but it has many other applications, such as understanding fossils as once living organisms, understanding fossils as once integrated communities and ecosystems, understanding range charts which represent biogeographic changes through geological time. Now, ecology and geological time. Ecology of prehistoric times extending from about 10,000 to about 3.5 into 109 million years ago. Although the principles of paleoecology are the same as those underlying modern ecology, the two fields actually differ greatly. Experimental approaches and direct measurement of environmental parameters, which are critical components of modern ecology, are generally impossible in paleoecology. Now, distortion and loss of information. Furthermore, distortion and loss of information during fossilization means that fossil assemblages and distributions are rarely congruent with living communities. Long-term changes in communities may be discerned and related to patterns of environmental change. More significantly, overall patterns of ecological change in the global biosphere may be documented. Evolutionary paleoecology focuses on recognition and interpretation of long-term ecological trends that have been critical in shaping evolution. Now, a fossil is the preserved remains of an organism that has died. Fossils tell scientists, called paleontologists, about living things such as their biology and environmental conditions over Earth history through the rock record. In addition, they give clues to the conditions of the Earth, that is climate, at the time that the fossil was preserved and possibly relate changes of an organism over time. The different fossil types found are mold fossils. When sediments bury an organism and the sediment hardens into rock, The organism decays slowly inside the rock, leaving a cavity in the shape of the organism. Cast fossil. The cavity or mold mentioned above can fill in with mud. When the mud hardens, it takes on the shape of the organism. Now, vitrified fossil. Minerals like calcium can soak into the buried remains of an organism. The mineral replaces the remaining bone and changes it into rock. Now, carbonized fossil. When organism parts are pressed between layers of mud or clay that hardens over time, squeezing the decaying organism away and leaving a carbon imprint in the rock, since all the living things contain carbon. Now, trace fossil. When the mud or sand hardens into rock where a footprint, trail, or burrow was left behind. The study of fossils, together with other geological and biological evidence, provides information on the history of Earth and the evolution of life. Fossils provide evidence about the relative ages of rock strata, environments, and evolution of life. The fossil record has been used to develop the worldwide geological timescale. Organisms may leave traces of their existence in the sediments formed during or shortly after their lifetime. Now let us discuss skeletal mineralogy and geochemistry. The microstructure and geochemistry of organism skeletons may provide clues about ancient environments. For example, the presence of growth banding in skeletons provides evidence for seasonal variability in climates. The skeleton of fossil organisms, if they are well preserved, also encode valuable environmental information in the form of trace elements and isotopic signatures. For example, the calcium carbonate skeleton of marine invertebrates incorporate trace elements whose proportion is related both to physiology and environmental factors such as temperature and salinity. The isotopic composition of oxygen or carbon within carbonate skeleton is a function of isotopic composition of the seawater in which the skeleton was secreted, as well as of water temperature. Now let us discuss about Floras and Paleobotany. The description of fossil flora, along with basic morphology, is perhaps the longest standing research area of paleobotany. Development of protocols to describe floras quantitatively, to sample them in ways that permit reconstruction of original vegetation, and to analyze them statistically is a major area of study and a building block of larger studies of ecological dynamics in time and space. Biomechanical attributes of fossil plants. Study of the biomechanical properties of plant tissues has permitted insights into growth and development that are difficult to attain by other means of reconstruction. The approaches to the study of paleoecology. As its most fundamental level, plant paleoecology is built on studies of individual plants and reconstructions of plant assemblages. In each case, there are various, often high degrees of uncertainty that must be overcome or accommodated for critical interpretations to be made. Taphonomy plays a role at all levels of inference in structuring interpretations and must be considered explicitly as a key element in all paleoecological analysis. The various approaches to study paleoecology are plant ecology, evidence for biotic change, pollen, evolutionary paleoecology, and genetic diversity. Now let us see at plant ecology. The Earth's biota responds to environmental changes that range in time from milliseconds to millions of years. Most ecologists study organisms on a time scale of less than 100 years, but many patterns and processes in nature can be better understood over a longer period. By providing information on vegetation and environmental change, especially during the past 15,000 years, example, the prevalence of stability virus, rapid change in ecosystems, the concept of an integrated community, the importance of disturbance in regulating community organization, alternative explanations of species diversity, and refugia theory. Paleoecological approaches also have many uses for applied ecologists and environmental scientists concerned with landscape management, restoration, ecology, and the design of nature preserves. Now, evidence for biotic change, pollen. The evidence for long-term vegetational change comes from fossil plant parts such as pollen, seeds, leaves, and twigs contained in lake muds and pits, and in drier environments, back-raked mittens. Most late glacial and Holocene vegetational data come from studies of fossil pollen in which samples are taken from lake and pit sediments. The pollen within the sediment samples is concentrated, subsampled, counted, and displayed on a pollen diagram. Macrofossils such as seeds, leaves, and twigs offer more taxonomic and spatial resolution than pollen, but are less abundant in most sediment, so that problems of sampling and temporal resolution can arise. Information derived from fossil pollen lacks the spatial, temporal, and taxonomic resolution of living material, but offers a long-term perspective unavailable to ecologists who study living organisms. Evolutionary paleoecology. Organisms evolve within the context of other organisms, not in a vacuum. There is substantial fossil evidence to indicate increasing complexity of organism interactions through time. This escalation in the intensity of predatory interactions, for example, may have important implications for evolutionary change. For example, trends of increased spinosity, greater shell thickness, increasingly restricted apertures, and other anti-predation adaptations may reflect the intensification of predatory behavior by shell boring and crushing predators. Marine animals form a hierarchy of ecological units through the Phanerozoic time interval. This range from blocks of relative stability at time scales of a few million years to proto-intervals of general stability of faunas to three great evolutionary faunas. Now, genetic diversity. Analysis of extant human DNA has greatly contributed to the understanding of human origins and migrations. However, an obvious problem when population history is deduced from results with extant human material is that important information regarding population replacements and minor migration events is missed if genetic information has been lost over long periods of time. However, the retrieval of suitable, authentic ancient DNA from ancient human material and the subsequent genetic analysis is time-consuming and by no means a trivial task. Despite this fact, a number of such studies have hitherto been performed. Cold and/or dry environments are ideal for the long-time survival of DNA in the remains of organisms, and excellent specimens have been recovered from such climatic conditions. Now, let us see at future development and applications. Paleoecology is the investigation of individuals, populations, and communities of organisms which lived in the past, and their interactions with and dynamic responses to changing environments. Modern ecosystems are only a very small part of all ecosystems that have existed throughout time, Any modern ecosystem which exists today is a product of the trials and tribulations of ancient ecosystems. Thus, an understanding of these past associations provides insight into the present. Paleoecology uses data from fossils to reconstruct the ecosystems of the past. Ecology and the study of modern ecosystems. There are still many unknown or incompletely understood variables influencing the distribution of modern-day animal and plant communities, and research is constantly improving our understanding of how these communities interact and are affected by changes in climatic variables. Niche theory has attempted to cope with this and other questions regarding living communities with the development of concepts such as niche width and overlap, specialization, and inter- and intraspecific competition. Now, increases in the mean body size of the individuals of a species, fluctuations in availability of food supply and in rainfall, competition, that is either intra or interspecific, predation, and the environment in which the animals live are all suggested as factors which may affect mammal populations. These concepts have provided explanations for the behavior observed within many animal communities, with competition appearing to be a significant driving force behind species diversity and density. The information on species responses to past environmental change can help us predict future behavior of species. One area of much concern is the possible warming of the Earth's atmosphere owing to increased emissions from the burning of fossil fuels. In theory, it should be possible to suggest future scenarios of community change and species migration by integrating past vegetation changes with a global circulation model that includes anthropogenically generated global warming. In practice, this may not be so easy. First, the predicted climatic changes will take place over a time span of decades to a few hundred years instead of hundreds to thousands of years. Second, the predicted global warming will be caused by changes in atmospheric chemistry affecting radiation transmittance, reflectance, and absorption rather than by orbitally induced changes as in the past. Third, the effects of an altered global climate will be confounded by the physiological effects of greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide on plants. Fourth, the Earth's predicted future orbital geometry indicates global cooling, a trend reflected in global climate and vegetation over the last 2,000 years up to the 19th century. Furthermore, general circulation models and paleoecological evidence suggest that disturbance regimes will likely change with changing climate and vegetation. Predictions of future greenhouse effects on the Earth's biota must take into account all these factors and recognize that future climate may not simply be warmer or drier, but entirely different across a continuum of spatial scales. Now let us discuss the cultural context of paleoecology. In short, all anthropologists of one kind or another are liable to investigate almost everything about human beings, our emotions, our behaviors, how people organize their living, our language, our religion, and so forth. A good way to emphasize anthropology's broad scope is to say anthropologists are interested in all human beings, whether living or dead, and that they are interested in many different aspects of humans, including their technologies, family lives, political systems, religions, and languages. According to the rise and development of different social institutions as well as social facts, arts, religion, morals, and various other facets of human behavior, which are taught under the purview of culture, the interpretations of which form the subject matter of anthropological thought. Now let us summarize the module. Paleoecology is the field of inquiry that attempts to identify parameters from past life derived from archaeological contexts and then to make interpretations regarding the environment and well-being of those organisms. Its chief claim to legitimacy is that it provides information about the many species in the past that left no records, which allow effective in changing the qualitative and quantitative results of paleoecological studies. The aim of paleoecology can be briefly enumerated to record data for future analysis and provide information for related ecological studies and to verify theories. A time of rapid environmental change following a more stable glacial biotic response to this change has been complex and probably different in detail in each of the preceding glacial or interglacial cycles. Species react in an individualistic manner to long-term environmental change. When considered on a paleoecological scale, communities are transient assemblages of species. Now, species populations and ranges have responded to and sometimes lag behind environmental changes in the Quaternary. These populations and ranges can vary between states of stasis and equilibrium versus instability and disequilibrium. Paleoecological studies indicate that disturbances of various sizes and intensities play an important role in structuring communities. The environment has been highly cyclical during the Quaternary and perhaps throughout Earth history. Such cyclicity should select for flexibility in species responses to environmental changes and biotic interactions, allow for allopatric speciation by geographic isolation, cause some laws of microevolutionary change as biotic assemblages are reorganized. Now, paleoecology can be helpful in explaining present processes in light of past patterns, making comparisons and predicting future patterns. That's all for this module. Thank you.